Hi, this is Art Hagland, and I thank you for watching my video. This first one is going to be short. I just really think everybody should understand one really important thing. The Bible does not contain chapters and verses other than the chapter separations, which would be individual psalms. And Proverbs would rightly be divided into verses of some sort, because these things were just wisdom nuggets that King Solomon had, and he would say them and they would get written down in a collection. Eventually that's how we have Proverbs. Not everything is necessarily related from one verse to another like the rest of the Bible is written. So many things in Proverbs just really are standalone statements. They don't have a context. Other than that, the Bible doesn't have chapter and verses. As it was written, chapters and verses started, well, in France in the 9th century, they happened to have a certain Bible that was divided somewhat into chapter and verses. But the real work started in around the year 1100. It's finished around the year 1350. Verses came first. Even people that were somewhat learned didn't necessarily learn numbers high enough for the longer books to just be called verses. So you couldn't even go with a group of priests and say, let's go to verse 712. They might not know what that number would be. Chapters were basically divisions to keep the numbers down and to give people what the people that divided them thought were a new topic. This book would cover a range of topics. When one topic was over, they would end the chapter. They'd go to a new chapter. So it is very, very wrong, and it's vitally important that everybody understands that the chapter and verse notations, separations in the Bible are not part of the Bible. They have one function and one function only. It is so you can find the spot either where you are at or where they are at, so you can study and read along. Unfortunately, as with any addition to the Bible, it ends up being a source of false doctrine. Verses don't exist. So if you are saying, can you show me a verse that proves that? No, because verses don't exist. You cannot take a verse and you cannot pretend that it stands alone, that it is context free, and that it is a doctrinal statement. You can't do that, because unless the verse actually is a summation of what was said beforehand, and there are some of those in the Bible, unless it is a statement of summation, you cannot take it and divorce it from context and pretend that it on its own is a doctrinal statement. That is wrong. It is so wrong that people think that verses are scriptures, plural. In the Bible itself, when it speaks of scriptures, what it is speaking of is the entire writing. The entire writing of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Isaiah, Jeremiah. Each one of those would be a scripture. So, when someone says, what do the scriptures say? What they are saying, what they are asking is, what does the entirety of the Old Testament, what is the entirety of the New Testament, what does the entirety of the Bible say on the subject? And when people say, do you have a scripture to prove that? They're asking for a verse. Do I have a scripture that proves it? Yes, the Bible. Yes, the book of Romans. Actually, it's a letter. The book of Isaiah, Malachi. Yes, I have scriptures that prove it. However, if you're looking just for a verse, they don't exist. It is like the mile marker on the freeway. If you break down and you're calling for help and they say, "Where are you at?" I'm at mile marker 353 of I-75, the northbound side. That is the purpose of chapters and verses. And why was that necessary? The reason it was necessary is because before the printing press, and even afterwards, Bibles are not the same size. They don't have the same amount of words on each page. So you can't say, turn to page so-and-so. Turn to page 500. Well, a huge Bible written in small letters, maybe it doesn't even have 500 pages. Or maybe 500 pages is going to put you in the first half of the Old Testament, and another Bible will put you in the second half of the Old Testament, could put you in the Gospels. Who knows? Because they were handwritten, the scribe had different size lettering, depending on if you included artwork and maps, depending on if you had blank pages in between books. All of these reasons, you can't use a page numbering system. So chapter and verse were developed so people could study together, so people could follow along, so people could find their place again. That is the one, the only use of chapter and verses. So, I will use chapter and verses to point you to the place that I'm speaking of. I'm not going to use chapter and verses to say this verse proves my point, because verses don't exist. And unless I can show you from the passage that would contain that verse and show the context proves my point, that I am properly getting from the Bible what it is actually saying, citing a verse doesn't mean a thing. Thanks for watching, and anytime you see my videos, keep that in mind.